Okay. So very good morning, all of you. On behalf of Electrical Engineering Department and our departmental HOD, Dr. Rital Gajal of Parur Institute of Technology, I welcome you all for the today's session or webinar on nanotechnology expanding the horizon in science. First, I would like to introduce today's expert for the webinar, Jash Mehta. He is alumni of Electrical Department of Parur Institute of Technology of 2018 pass out batch. He is one of the very good students of this batch. He has done masters in electronics, electrical engineering and automatic with specialization in microelectronics in 2019. He joined R&D division of STM Electronics as an intern for development in SG antennas chipset. Then he started PhD at Institute of Electronics, Microelectronics and Nanotechnology Laboratory by CNRC French National Scientific Research from University of Lille. So now I Jas Mehta sir. Hello Jas Mehta sir. Am I audible? Jas sir. Hello. Hello Jas sir.
Uh,
Hello Jas sir. Hello. Hello Jas sir, are you there?
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible now? Hello.
Yes, sir. You can start your session now. You're audible, sir.
Okay. Just a minute. Just a minute, ma'am. I am trying to add the slides. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the delay. Hello, good morning, everybody. I am Josh Mehta from studied electrical engineering from Parul Institute of Technology from 2014 and 18 batch. And currently, I am working as a researcher in the IEM and CNRS. Nice to meet you all. And first of all, I would like to thank my university and the Alumni Association and also the HOD of our department, Dr. Rital Madam, who gave me this immense opportunity to have this chance to present something related to nanotechnology in front of all the students and colleagues out there. So let's begin with today's presentation. So today, for basic content, I have made quite a simple context. So I will start with basics on nanotechnology, and we'll discuss about how the things work down the domain. And then after, we will switch towards the nanofabrication, where we will get to learn about the process and technologies that are involved in the fabrication of nano devices. And then I will give some overview on fabrication of engineering process of all the devices that we want to make with nanometric scale. And then I will also give some introduction about various equipments that are to be used to successfully carry out this engineering process. And also I'll give you some introduction to my laboratory where I am currently working. So let's begin. So there must be a question in mind by knowing what is, first of all, after listening to the word nanotechnology, that what is it? How do you see this word fit? So basically, what nanotechnology is, it involves the ability to see and to control individual atoms and molecules. That's what we cannot even think of. To see and control individual atoms and molecules, which is almost 10 raised to 9 times smaller than 1 meter. So you can see a comparison that is made here. So for example, in this slide, you can see here, I have given example of nano LED. So these are basically nano LEDs fabricated on a given silicon substrate, on which there are zinc oxide nanowires, which will illuminate at different spectrum compared to the size of the dots, which we see here in the right side of the presentation. We see the representation of how these things are visualized at nano level. So starting from figure A, you can see that it is in millimeters of range. And going towards the last figure, we go all the way towards 1 micron range. So we can totally visualize the difference as zooming down the domain. And by this way, we can literally be able to see and control individual atoms and molecules inside the structure with different changes in the parameters. And here, as we see, there is an example of quantum dots, which are the same application for as we see here. And an interesting fact that we see is that a sheet of newspaper is about 1 lakh nanometers thick. So by this way, you can maybe have a guess on how much nanometers terms in 10 nanometer is considered in terms of a newspaper. Or else I have one more interesting thing. Suppose you consider a marble, a small marble, as 1 nanometer. Then your 1 meter will be the size of this planet. So think of it. This is a very interesting fact. So this is the basic overview of nanotechnology. Now the question arises, how did it came into existence? So let's dig into some history of nanotechnology. The term nanotechnology was coined by Professor Norio Taniguchi in 1974. So before Professor gave his term, Richard Feynman, Professor Richard Feynman gave in a talk. They talk about there is a plenty of room at the bottom. So this talk made him so much famous about the approach of going towards nano level in terms of ideation. Like we can control the device all the way down towards atomic level and molecular level. And this term was then coined in 1974, as we see. And then until by 1981, two physicists, Gerd Benning and Heinrich Roher from IBM Zurich, they did something amazing. They invented the scanning tunneling microscope. So with this microscope, they can individually see an atom. The modern nanotechnology era started with this invention, and after a few years, they also received a Nobel Prize in Physics for their invention of scanning tunneling microscope. And after this invention, many more inventions carried out in terms of in the field of nanotechnology for better surface analysis and for better studies related to nano level. So this is where the nanotechnology began in early 1980s. So now that we know that we have the history of nanotechnology, but the question still arises, why do we study that? What is the use of nanotechnology? So basically here is a small graph that we can see where the applications, where we can find different range of applications of nanotechnology, starting from electric vehicles, considering the electric vehicles that are available in today's market. Let's suppose Tesla. So Tesla uses silicon carbide MOSFET from ST Microelectronics. So that is the application for electric vehicle. Defense and security, even in military defense systems, and also, as we all know, in India, we have the BARC, Baba Atomic Research Center, and also the DRDO, Defense Research Organization. And these research organizations, they use this nanotechnology for their for application, for extensive applications in day-to-day use. Even for medicine and drugs, targeted drug delivery systems are being announced, which will target the drug all the way down towards a specific point in your body, so that there is more chance of reviving easily from the problem. Even bioengineering, as we see, and fabrics also, nano fabrics are being increased because of the flexible electronic technologies. Also with agriculture, we can use the nanotechnology to have better quality of fertilizers and to grow a good quality of hybrid products. And in space applications, as we all know, in nanotechnology, there are a few materials which can sustain very high temperatures and very high breakdown. So for space applications, such things are almost an ideality. So this is the best applications of nanotechnology that we will be studying. So this is the reason why we should study nanotechnology and explore the field more, so that we get to know how the things will work. So let's see how a consumer electronic is manufactured. Everybody might know about consumer electronics, integrated circuits. But nobody ever think or try to think that how it can be made. Like nobody can understand just by looking at diagrams. So let's start with the basic thing. So basically, there is an ingot that we see in the diagram starting. This ingot is made from growth of material such as silicon. So, for example, if this is a silicon ingot, then this ingot will be sliced into thin wafers of different diameters and different thicknesses. So the ingot will be diced into sliced wafer as we see in the diagram. Then the sliced wafer will be processed in the clean room, where with engineering we will develop the micro nano devices on the sliced wafer that we see on the micro nano fabrication. Then these fabricated devices will be cut down into and die, which is a sort of collection of series or parallel transistors or MOSFET or whatever switching device we fabricated. And then this chip and die is converted into integrated circuits for the application into consumer electronics that we see in the diagram. Almost every consumer electronic that we use in day-to-day life, it consists of almost many types of integrated circuits, and with different requirements and applications, different micro fabricated chips are being produced every day. So latest chipset that we have is almost around 5 nanometer chipset, which is almost next to zero dimensions if it goes below nano level. So this is how the technology is expanding every day in this market. And even Murray's law stated that after every 2 years, the number of transistors will be doubled. So this is the prediction of the guy that we see here. And after every 2 years, we can see a remarkable growth in the technology, in the size of exploration. So now I will make you understand something related to approach, that what kind of approach they use in nanotechnology, just a basic approach to begin with. So there are two approach basically, a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So to be more clear, simply a top-down approach is like when you have a bulk material and you break down the material into fragments, and then you break down the fragments into nanostructures. So for example, you can use a thin film micro electromechanical system. It is a top-down approach where it is used as a membrane to have the acoustic waves. And for the bottom-up approach, we see that it is made from smaller part towards a nanoscale structure. That is, atoms are clustered one by one on top of each other, and then nanostructures are fabricated. So this is the bottom-up approach. So as we see in the tabular form that I have here, in bottoms-up approach, we can do the chemical synthesis, we can do the self-assembly, and we can do the positional assembly. So in chemical synthesis, it is given as the particles or molecules that are being clustered together, or there are crystalline films such as the thin film one-dimensional materials or two-dimensional material, and experimental atomic or molecular devices that we see. And in top-down, we have lithography and electronic device chip mask. That is when they produce the mask for the chipset, and quantum well lasers and the MEMS device, as I said already. So we have these two type of approach towards making or fabrication of any type of electronic or microelectronic device. So after this approach, I will like to introduce you to some of the microelectronic devices that might help you to visualize the technology that I'm going to explain you further. So basically, here we have few pictures. So first of all, I will come to the gallium nitride RF picture where we see NXP. So NXP is basically a semiconductor group. It is very famous in worldwide. They are developing a lot of They are developing a lot of power electronic components and chipsets. So this is a RF module from made from gallium nitride material. So basically, what is gallium nitride? First of all, everybody will think. So almost we have studied devices based on silicon substrate, that the base is silicon. But in modern era, the silicon has already been reached its limits in terms of performance, in terms of quality or whatever it is. So now we need to think beyond silicon. So that is where gallium nitride comes into play. So recently you guys might have heard also that mobile chargers are coming with very high power, like a 30-watt charger or 65-watt fast charger. So those chargers, this technology has adapted the gallium nitride material in power electronics. This material has a wide bandgap properties, which helps in increasing the performance and quality of the device and reducing the size and cost compared to the silicon devices. So that's why they have started these gallium nitride devices also. The same goes for the SiC silicon carbide devices. And the most fascinating fact you will know today that silicon carbide wafer is transparent in nature. So when you process the wafer, you will see through the wafer all the structure of the layers. So this is something that you cannot even think of, that you can see through a sample, and eventually you can use the same thing for high frequency switching devices. So that is the power of semiconductors. And here I have two devices, that is a high electron mobility transistor and a MOSFET. So let's come to high electron mobility transistor. Here we have a small structure, just a basic explanation, I won't bore you guys. So it is just a small structure having a source and drain with a gate in between. And we have gallium nitride channel, barrier, and argon barrier. So between the channel and barrier, we have a 2DEG that is written. 2DEG is a two-dimensional electron gas that is formed between the surface of gallium nitride and aluminum gallium nitride. Why? Because there is a spontaneous piezoelectricity in this material. That is the property of gallium nitride. Because of that property, there is a quantum well created in the structure which will accumulate all the electrons between the barrier and the channel. So between these two layers, there will be a gas of electrons which is waiting from source to drain all the active region. So when you apply the source drain voltage, then the channel will conduct and the gate will decide the pitch off of the channel. So this is how this hemp transistor works. So basically, what are the benefits of hemp? We have a very good mobility of electrons. We have very high concentration of electrons in the channel, and the conduction current and the frequency is very good. So this is the hemp device, and the same goes for MOSFET. As we all know, MOSFET you might have studied as well. It is a metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. So it is a basic diagram that is given for a MOSFET, for a silicon carbide MOSFET. And here we have one image from ST Microelectronics that I said already, that this is the MOSFET they sell, and the maximum voltage is around 1200 volt silicon carbide MOSFET with maximum current rating of 33 amperes in this much small size. So this is something next level. And also they have provided heating efficiencies. So this is the MOSFET that is used by Tesla in their electric vehicles. And this is just the first generation of the MOSFETs. So who knows, if we explore more towards the wide bandgap semiconductors, we can maybe find eventually better and better devices in electronics. So this was the basic intro of the power electronic devices. Now I will introduce you to the nanofabrication process. So what is a nanofabrication process? You might want to know that since we saw this much devices, then there must be some process to fabricate, to make these devices. So how you work at nano level? So, okay, basically, we have 5 steps to determine a device, to make a device in majority. And this is the basic structure that you see. So basically, if we want to fabricate a high electron mobility transistor, then we see from the basic structure that we have several layers that are grown on each other with different stress and strain components, which will lead them to produce surface charges, and this will be able to help in the two-dimensional formation of two-dimensional electron gas that we discussed. So in the mark step, we first of all create a pattern on our sample on which we can see through. We etch the pattern deeply enough so that we can see through the pattern in microscope, and then we need those pattern for further processing of the sample. So after marking the sample, we inlay the ohmic contact. So what is ohmic contact? Now here we see the source and drain, those are ohmic contacts. So basically for ohmic contacts, we etch the sample all the way down just near the 2DEG, two-dimensional electron gas, to have a very least contact resistance as possible so that we can have uninterrupted current without any resistance, with very least resistance and a very good switching frequency. So after ohmic contact, we isolate our structure. So isolation means basically creating active area apart from all the rest of the region. Because since if we do not isolate our system, there can be some unwanted surface losses or charges, which can lead to early breakdown of the device or poor performance of the device. So if we want to explore the full potential of the device, we need to isolate our active area. So for instance, the active area is from source towards drain, including the gate length. So that we see from the basic structure. So this active area is isolated in the isolation step, and the mesa is called because the islands are formed if we isolate it with by etching the sample. Or else there is another technique, you can do nitrogen implantation. And after isolation, we need to implant the gate. So after that, we again do lithography, and then we implant a gate in the between. And then after gate, we need the pads to connect our measurement devices to measure on wafer. So on wafer testing, we need the connection for pads. So after that, we do the pads and finally complete the device. So this is just a simple basic overview of how we start to fabricate the whole device and how we end up. So now I will introduce you to where it is made. So this is called clean room. So this thing is like, as you see from the table that is given, it is like graded with ISO ratings. So it is a international rating system. And here we see different types of different grade of particles like zero point 0.1 micrometer per meter cube of volume. So these are the grades of clean room, and the clean room where I work, IEMN, is a grade of ISO 6 of 1600 meter square of clean room. So basically, in the clean room that I work, there are greater than only 293 particles for every 5 micron per meter cube. So by this way, they determine how much particles ppm, particles per minute, particles are there in your room, so that there is no dust formation on your samples. Because nanotechnology, we have to take care even of our hair. If even if our hair is on the sample, then it will damage the sample totally. So by this way, they decide the quality of the clean room. And here, as we see, there are a lot of different pictures of clean room. So basically, there is a picture, the first picture that you see just beside the table. It is from lithography room. That is why it seems to be yellowish in color, because there is some specification to operate lithography room. And then you see different devices. There is a picture in the bottom with a huge microscope, that is the scanning electron microscope, to check the surface at nanometer level, and to even check the dust particles and growth related problems of your sample. So here is basically how a clean room looks like. So let's start with some process. So I will start with the photolithography. So basically, what is photolithography? So let's try to understand it with this diagram. So in this diagram, on the right hand side, we see that we have a lens, then we have a mask, and below the lens we have a sample. So basically, it's a process to pattern from the mask to on your sample. So now you might understand that how the shape of the chipset that we saw earlier in this slide. Suppose in this silicon carbide wafer, you see some design in the center. So this design is done by this mask from photolithography. So by these masks, you have to follow this step for every while to complete the photolithography and to process different steps in the fabrication. It consists almost 40 to 50% time of your fabrication of device. So it is a very important step. And even if you see on the left hand side, we have two different types of resist. So basically, photolithography, we add some resist on our sample, and then we coat it with the resist, and then we insulate the sample in under UV, and then we expose it. So basically, this is the concept. So some part of the resist will be there and some part will be removed, and then we can proceed further. So there is two types of resist, positive and negative. That's just a basic concept. In positive resist, the part of the resist which is exposed, it will stay, and everything else will be removed. And in negative resist, the part of the resist which is not exposed will stay, and the rest of them will go. So this is the two types of resist that we use in lithography, and we can determine two other types of lithography. So basically, there are what we use in day-to-day life. We have electron beam lithography and optical lithography. So these two has a minor difference in terms of precision, we can say. Electron beam is precise up to 10 nanometers, and it is very costly. Compared to optical lithography, it is in the tolerance will be in around 1 to 2 microns, but the cost is very normal compared to electron beam. So alongside fabrication, you have to think about costing also with every process that you do, so that you have the minimal cost device with a good performance. So in photolithography, first of all, in spin coater, we by changing these parameters that is shown, by changing speed, the acceleration time, and the viscosity of the resist is depend on the different types of resist. So by changing these parameters, we can determine the thickness of the resist that we want on our sample to have a proper application. So in this spin coater, we we inlay all the different type of resist on our sample, and with this mask aligner, we put the pattern on the resist, and then we expose the resist in the UV light depending on the required power of UV. And by this way, this photolithography step is done. And this is used during various processes, such as if you want to deposit a metal or during the metal liftoff, then photolithography we use. Or if we want to etch a specific place or specific pattern, then we use this kind of process, and it is mostly used in all the fabrication steps. So now we move on to etching. So I will be quite short with this, because since I cannot explain everything in detail, it will take a lot of time. So with etching, we can characterize it with wet etching and plasma etching. So let's see. Wet etching. Wet etching, as you might have guessed, it consists of chemicals. So I've named some of the solutions for wet etching that we see: hydrogen fluoride, HCl, HNO3, Piranha solution. Piranha solution is a kind of mixture of sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide. So this type of solutions we etch. Etch means to remove the part of the sample. So what is the proper relevance of etch? Here we see in the image the resist is there from the center in a positive resist section, as we all notice. So if we keep this in etching, then the device will remove the part of the sample that is behind what is exposed. So this what etching is. It will create 3D structures in your sample. So you can visualize these in 3 dimensions, and then you can maybe try to get my point, that with etching, suppose in mark step with etching, we inlay the ohmic contact. So if we etch the device, the contact will be closer. So by this way, it is processed. So in etching, we have 2 types. So wet etching, we say it is with chemical solutions, and plasma etching. Plasma etching, we have in my lab, there is a reactive ion etching. So it contains high-speed plasma gas. So the high-speed plasma shots are being pulsed at specific frequency at your sample. So these pulses will etch your sample, because your sample is on a substrate and on a electrode, RF electrode. So by this thing works. So you might see this very fascinating, but see in the center picture, see the color, the violet color. This is the sulfur hexafluoride, SF6 plasma. So this plasma turns into purple color. So by this way, we can categorize different mixture of plasmas. So basically, if we use oxygen plasma, then there is a white color of light that we can see and visualize. because of the high temperature of gases, they ionize. So that is the concept behind plasma etching. So after etching, we need to check our sample. So here it is. We can see it is a scanning electron microscope. So here, basically this microscope works with a high voltage electron beam gun. So the beam is up to 10 kilovolts of electron beam. It will throw the electrons on the surface of your sample, and this will generate the image in return. So let's see how we can see in the picture how the SEM look like. And these all the devices that you see, they all work in vacuum. So there is no dust particles at all in the air that camera can capture. So we can see a highly clear resolution in these images. And it takes a quite time, like few minutes, to pump air in and out of these devices. So it's complicated. But we can see resolutions better than 1 nanometer. This is something very extraordinary. You can see one example here. I took this picture. This is a source contact of a transistor. You can see the surface morphology. You can see the metal, how the metal looks like nano level. And this picture is taken at 1 micron range with a scanning electron microscope. So even you can zoom beyond this. So if you can imagine how a structure would look like, imagine how you visualize atoms. Just from childhood we have just seen it in books, but in reality how you can see the atoms and how you can manipulate with these things. This is something that everybody should try once, I hope. But after surface characterization, SEM, we can check the traps and dirts on the sample that we see here, and also we can see if our active area is good, if we have any parasitic if we have any resist left or not, because if there is resist, then there will be problem in device. So by this way we can continually verify our processing quality and determine how our device is made, how our device is going. And then we have electrical characterization. So basically it's full of IV curves, IDVG, IDVD, and if we have the IV curves of the device, then we do Hall measurements to check the two-dimensional electron gas properties. So basically you might all know Hall concept of Hall effect measurements. So it's not necessary to explain you guys. And now let's see for contact resistance. For contact resistance, it is quite important concept, because we want to avoid resistance very much, since with the increasing voltage it will also increase. So that is the main part in the design aspect of engineer, of a device engineer, that you have to have good contact resistance in your device to have a better performance. And then after, you see the high voltage breakdown measurement. So below the high voltage breakdown measurement, you see an image of a big black box with a microscope. This is the high voltage breakdown setup, bench setup. So basically, in my laboratory, we have a 10 kilovolt of high voltage setup. So 10 kilovolts you can give with a distance in microns. One can imagine air is going to break down at few volts. Yes, sure, air will break down, but we immerse our sample in liquid and then we have to measure it, just because air will break down before the sample breaks. And this is something fascinating. With this device, in camera, you can see the behavior of electric field at a micron level. You can literally see the expanding field with increasing the tension between 2 points. So this is a fascinating view of science. And after that, we have these micro probes that you see. These probes are connected for on-wafer testing. Like if we processing the wafers and if you need some quick measurements and to check whether the device is good or not, then yes, we can use these kind of probes. And in this side, we can see the Hall effect measurement setup, where you just need to connect the 4 probes to the sensor pattern on the device, and then it's good to go. So this is basically how the characterization works after your fabrication. And now I will introduce myself. So I didn't introduce myself before properly, just because if I introduced you earlier, then you wouldn't get what I was working on. But after this much of basic overview, you might get my topic of thesis. So I am working on development of electronic components. Basically, for now, I am working on HEMT devices, high electron mobility transistors, based on ALN substrate. So this material is ultra wide bandgap material, and this is going beyond gallium nitride. So basically, we are exploring something far out of reach from gallium nitride. So we don't know still, because the material is totally immature in electronics, but still we are trying to figure out. And if potentially this material has a lot of prospects in future power electronics. So let's hope what I can do with my thesis work in this one. And my thesis director is Dr. Farid Meddu. He is a senior scientist in CNRS. He is very good guy in this work. Like he on gallium nitride, he has almost 130 around research papers published, and he is a society. He is a manager. He's a member of IMEC Society in Belgium, KU Leuven, and many other places. He's also adjourning some conferences and committees with research European Commission. So this is where I feel myself the most lucky, where I got to chance to work with such kind of people. So I would like to also introduce you to my work profile. Basically, I am a full-time researcher. So every day, if you have your samples ready, we have to fabricate. We have to make nanotransistors by following all the processes, all the steps. We have to engineer each and every step according to our needs, our structure. Then we need to process, and in between processing, we have to do some measurements to check the quality of device. And after that, we have to do characterization, full level characterization on all the transistors. So basically, I work on small samples. Suppose if you have a 1 inch of sample, then I have around 100 to 200 transistors in that. So imagine duplicating all the measurements on each of the transistors just to have an overview of how the device will work. So this is the work that I have to do for my research, and hopefully I like it a lot, and I really hope that I can do something good in this domain. So that was basically my research. So now you might have understood that what thesis topic I am working on in nanotechnology and microelectronics. So now I would introduce you about something about my laboratory. So basically IEMN, it's a French laboratory, of course. So it means Institut d'électronique, microelectronique et nanotechnologie. I know you guys will be laughing, but it is Institute of Electronics, Microelectronics, and Nanotechnology. So basically, we have a staff. Staff consists of doctorate, postdoctorate, scientists, researcher of around 500 people. So these 500 people are divided into 5 groups, 5 categories with 22 research groups all around the laboratory. 22 different research groups consisting of each and everything, such as I will give you some examples like nanobio interfaces, working on some protein DNAs. Then we have some people working on different domain, such as Schottky diodes, reverse diode, etc. So some of us are working on telecommunication system circuits, antenna systems, or at high frequency switching with different types of material, and some are working on nano electromechanical systems. So this is the thing that it is divided into 22 research groups in my laboratory, and I am from gallium nitride research group. And technical platforms. So basically our lab has this many technical platforms. So first, a micro nano fabrication center, as I said, it is the clean room that we have around 1600 meters square. Then we have a high frequency characterization platform. We have a near field microscopy. And the last two platforms are in the different campus of the laboratory, which are not nearby my laboratory, but we can use it if we want to understand or explore the physics behind our technology. So our lab, it's fascinating. I didn't know our lab produces around 300 international articles annually in international journals, like famous journals that we all might read every day, Elsevier and MDPI. So this is some lot of work, different work people are doing. And the annual budget we see is 30 million euros. So research has something here. We have a lot of funding and we are supported a lot by government and everything. The availability of the resources is also very different. But still, in India, this field is uprising every day. We need it. Like after a few years, there will be some of clean room all over in Gujarat. So we need some people to have some extraordinary research in this field. So that's why you can think of pursuing this kind of field. And lastly, I have something innovative to share with you guys. So this is a project at my lab. So basically, you see, this is a small thing, a small insect looking like a thing, but this is a prototype of flapping micro unmanned air vehicle. So I saw this project. It's kept in my laboratory, and they use the MEMS technology, that is the micro electromechanical system, leading to new generation of nano drones. So this is basically a nano drone. Nobody can believe just by watching it for the first time. This is nothing. This is just a piece of paper. But this is a nano drone that they might use it for security and surveillance. So that's kind of innovation that they are working towards. So basically, this is just for a drone. But I even know one research. They work on diamond wafers, make devices, Schottky diodes on diamond wafer, because diamond has a very high band gap. So it can sustain a good amount of thermal and electrical breakdown. So we see something new every day, like whenever we meet some people or exchange some talks, even in the laboratory, if you meet someone, you exchange something, you get to know something that you never even think of. This is like life-changing opportunity like I have ever got, and I feel very lucky to share with you guys, so that you might can even go much better places than what I am right now. So thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't bore you out.
Hello, Jas. Your presentation was very nice.
Thank you, ma'am.
And informative. If any participant have any question, then they can ask.
Yes, any questions are most welcome. Or even you can contact me on email if you have any questions later on. I'll write my email in the chat. Here you have my email ID. You can email me with any query or anything you want to ask, like how to approach or how to go for this role, how you want to explore this field. I can give you something that you might know or you might not know. So this is a good thing. If you guys really want to do something, this is the best field to work with in the future.
Keval, you have raised a hand. Do you have any query? Keval? Okay, so it seems that right now participants do not have any queries. But still, if you have afterwards, if you want to contact, you can contact Josh on the mail ID which he has written in the chat box. Okay. So I hope all the
Yes.
participants have gained a very good knowledge for nanotechnology. Thank you very much, Josh, for sharing your expertise in this area.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving me this chance to express my feelings for everyone, for feelings with everyone that I studied like these things, and it is very different approach compared to what people do, and
Yeah,
I'm
looking to this
glad to share it with everybody.
Yeah, looking to this research area in which you are working and the university and the laboratory, really we are proud of you. And once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
to all participants for attending this webinar. Thank you. So we are ending this
Thank you,
session
everyone.
here.
Okay, thank you
We are
everyone.
ending this session. Thank you. Participants can leave now. Hello, Josh.
Hello, ma'am. Yes.
Josh, you can also leave now. I am leaving this session.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.